What are sacrifice limits? We talked about that. What are sacrifice limits? When you're discarding to your own crib, what are sacrifice limits?
2 for small hands and 4 for big hands.
Okay. Sacrifice limits is just what it says. I can sacrifice points in my hand when dealing for certain kinds of discards. What might those discards look like?
2, 3, 5, 5.
Yeah, just ties in with this nickels and dimes concept again. We can give up in certain hands. What's the maximum we can sacrifice for any discard?
4.
4 points. And we would do that. We would do that for a 5-5. In hands that look like this: 5-5, Jack, Jack, Queen, King. The 5-5 to the crib is a good discard from that hand, or any other double run of face cards. Now, if you held 2 5s and 2 queens and a 4-6, would the 2 5s to your crib be the proper thing to do?
No.
No, and that brings up the question that we've got to ask on the big hand rule, is we want to stay within the sacrifice limits, and we also want to ask, do I still have a potential for 12 or more? If the answer is yes, you made the correct discard. If the answer is no, you keep the 2 5s in your hand. Okay? What is the small hand rule? Actually, most of the hands we pick up will be small hand rules. It might be 2, 3, 6, 7, 9, and a king. 2, 3, 6, 7, 9, and a king. Is that 6 cards? 2, 3, 6, 7, 9, and a king. Yeah. And 6, 7, 9, and a king is worth 2. Deuce tray is worth 2. But the deuce tray, if you remember, average is 7.4, something in that range. So it's a very good thing when you're dealing. If you're only given up, if you kept the deuce with the 6, 7, 9, you'd have 4. And then you put a king 3 in your crib. And what does it take to make the king 3 count? A deuce, which you got in your hand. So you think of, in these small hands, you think of the crib as an extension of your hand. So you know you got 2 in your hand and 2 in your crib. You really didn't sacrifice. And you put a couple cards in the crib that could be good building blocks. So those are the 2 basic rules when you're dealing. Now, do these work when you're playing discarding to your opponent's crib? No. So it's very important that you divorce your thinking. These only apply when you're dealing. You're going to count the crib. They don't do a thing for you when you're discarding on the other side of the board. Are there any questions or comments about discarding to your own crib? I think maybe I got over here too far. If we do this again, I'm not really into marking a spot on the floor, and I hadn't really considered any form of makeup. But it seems like if we do this again, and of course I'd be another year older, so makeup might be critically important. You know, I would like people to think that I might survive one more week. So, but I don't know. I'm colorblind. You'd have to tell me, what's my color look like on there?
Good color.
Is it? My wife says if I shaved this off, I'd look 20 years younger. I'd say at my age, who wants to look 20 years younger? I mean, I'd only be 78 then. Yeah. All right. remember about the key connectors. It's pretty important in discarding. If you can't remember the discards that have low value to your opponent or discards that have high value to your own, think of the key connectors. In the small cards, the 3 is the strongest card. The crib, oftentimes, if there's small cards there, doesn't amount to much unless there's a 3, either on the deck or in the crib. And among the middle cards is 7. I think most of you who played a while have noticed that the 7 with a king is quite a bit different than the 8 with a king, and a lot different than the 6 with a king or a 9 with a king. The 7 is the key connector, and very often, even though the discard looks pretty safe, quite often it counts 12. And of course you can vary it a little and think, well, I got burned for 12 by putting it with a king, so you try it with a jack and it's worth 13. Okay. Anybody remember that kind of a crib? 7 jack for 13? So, and then you've got the 5, of course, is the key connector in a lot of respects. We think automatically with the 10-point cards, but it works so nicely with the 1-9 and the 2-8 and the 3-7 and the 4-6 that it actually has so many connections. It's a very dangerous card. As a rule, you should not throw it to your opponent's crib. And if you can find a way within the sacrifice limits, put it in your own. Jack is the key connector among the face cards, 10-point cards. Very often when you look at the crib without the jack, it's 10-10, queen, king. I mean, not much, is it? But if you turn the jack on the deck or a 5, then it counts up pretty good. But the jack is the key connector. Avoid it when possible. If you're not dealing, play it with a 6, 7, 8. Play it with a 2, 3, but keep the jack as often as you can.